Hello everyone. Okay, today we're going to continue with our comic strip Black Bob. I'm going to read this comic strip and I'm going to explain any unusual words or expressions to you so that you can hear a comic strip in English and understand it fully and develop your English skills through comprehensible input. So first of all, this comic strip is called Black Bob, and Black Bob is the name of the dog in this story. Now, the other main character is called Andrew Glenn. This is Andrew Glenn. He is a farmer in Scotland. Here you can see the British Isles, and Scotland is up here at the top. So, Andrew Glenn was repairing a damaged fence on his land. So here is the fence and it's damaged. If I take this jar and I drop it, maybe a little bit of glass will break off and then it's been damaged. Now, he says, "This was definitely done deliberately, Bob." Now, that's a Scottish accent. Also in English, in an English accent, it would be, "This was definitely done deliberately, Bob." So he's talking to his dog and he's saying that this fence is damaged and someone wanted to damage it. If we do something deliberately, we intend to do it or we want to do it. If two people are walking and, sorry, they bump into each other, usually it's by accident. They bump into each other and one says sorry and the other says, "Oh, sorry," and they continue walking. So that's not deliberate. But if someone's walking and goes, "Hey, what are you doing? I don't like you." Okay? Here, then this was deliberate. He wanted to hit the other person. "Sheep have passed through here. Sheep have passed through here. And this dye is the colour of Henry Wilson's sheep markings. And this dye is the colour of Henry Wilson's sheep markings." So here, sheep have passed through here. He's talking about his damaged fence. So if this is the fence and it's damaged here, there's a space and the sheep have passed through that space. And this dye is the colour of Henry Wilson's sheep markings. So here he has some wool. So here you can see two sheep, and sheep have wool, and we can make clothes with wool. This is made from cotton, but you can make clothes from wool too, very warm clothes. And he's found some wool, and on that wool there's some dye, and dye is a colour that we use to change the colour of something else. So here you can see some dye on the sheep's wool. Here is some other dye on the sheep's wool. We can use dye to make clothes, like this top, this jumper, used black dye, and this t-shirt needed green dye, or you can dye your hair with purple dye or black dye, etc. Now, on the wool that he finds, there's a marking with some dye, so he knows that this is not his sheep, but it's Mr. Wilson's sheep. Because shepherds, people who have sheep, usually put some dye on the wool to make a marking so that they know, okay, this is my sheep, that's not my sheep, so they don't get confused about whose sheep is whose. Now, just then, Andrew had a visit from a neighbour. "Just come to say goodbye, Andrew. I'm selling up. Wilson offered me a good price for my farm." "I'm sorry to hear that, John. You've been a good neighbour." "Just come to say goodbye, Andrew. I'm selling up. Wilson offered me a good price for my farm." So this man has come to say goodbye to Andrew, and he says that he's selling up. That means that you're selling your whole business. So when we say to sell up, we sell our whole business. Here I have an eraser for a whiteboard. I could sell this eraser to you for £2. You give me £2, I give you the eraser. So I've sold the eraser, but I haven't sold up. We sell up when we sell the entire business. It could also be a house as well. We sell our house and we move to another place. But selling up is very often related to selling a business. You've decided that that is it for your business, that you don't want to do it anymore, or you don't want to take this business any further. You decide to stop and you sell up. You sell the whole business. I'm sorry to hear that, John. You've been a good neighbour. So if someone ever gives you news like that, like they're selling up or they're moving to another place, you can say, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Now, odd that Wilson didn't mention buying the Abnett farm when he was here. I know he wants to expand. I thought he'd have mentioned it. Odd that Wilson didn't mention buying the Abnett farm when he was here. I thought he wants to expand. I thought he'd have mentioned it. So he says that it's odd, which means it's strange. Odd. How odd. That is the expression that we make when we say that something is odd. That's very odd. We're confused because it's strange and we start to think about it. How odd. So he thinks it's very strange that Wilson didn't mention buying the Abnett farm, because he saw in the last episode of the story, he saw Wilson. So it would have been a perfect moment to say that he was buying this farm. It's a strange thing that he never said it at all. And he says, I know he wants to expand. And to expand is to get bigger. If I have a balloon, when I blow it up with air, it expands. And here is Henry Wilson's farm, and he wants to buy the Abnett farm, so he will be expanding. And then he wants to buy another farm, so he will expand again. He wants to expand and expand, so he has more farmland. Back at the farm, the cattle are gone, and I know I didn't leave the gate open. The cattle are gone, and I know I didn't leave the gate open. So here you can see the gate, and the gate is open. It's not closed, it's open. And the cattle are gone. Cattle is another word for cows. Cows. It usually describes cows or bulls or oxes, but normally cows. So the cows have gone. The cattle are gone. And he knows that he didn't leave the gate open. He knows that this gate was closed when he left it. Go find them, lad. Go find them, lad. So he's sitting down on the ground, almost as if he's looking for clues. Maybe he can see something so he can know who opened his gate. And he says to Bob to go find them, to go and find the cattle. And he calls Bob lad. And lad is a word which means like man or guy. A lad is usually a young man. It could be an adolescent, a teenager, or it could be someone under the age of 30 or 40 or something. So between the ages of about 15 and 30, lad is a word that people can use to describe a man or boy in those ages. So it's usually a young man, a lad. And it's very common in Scotland, but also in England as well. Bob soon found the missing herd. Where do you lot think you're going? Where do you lot think you're going? So Bob found the missing herd. So here is the missing herd. A herd is a group of cows, or it could be a group of sheep, or it could be a group of elephants. It's usually a group of animals, but it's always a group of animals, but it's often a group of cows or a group of sheep or a group of elephants. So Bob found the missing herd, and Andrew Glenn starts to talk to the herd, talk to the cows, and he says, where do you lot think you're going? Where do you think you're going? So that's a way to say, come back here, get back on my farm. Yeah. So if someone is walking off and you don't want them to walk off, you can say, where do you think you're going? Where do you think you're going? Come back. Okay. If you're a teacher and you go on a school trip and you're with lots of kids and the kids start to walk off, you can say, where do you think you're going? Come back here. Okay. And here, the lot, you lot, is just a way to say all of you, not just one cow, but all the cows. Where do you lot think you're going? Obviously, the cows can't respond, but he talks to them anyway, which I guess maybe farmers do. They talk to their animals. Sure enough, they soon caught and headed off the herd. I think we've earned our lunch today, Bob. I think we've earned our lunch today, Bob. So here, sure enough, means that they predicted that they would find the cows. They predicted they would find it, and they did find it. So when something happens that you predict will happen or you expect to happen, then you can say, well, sure enough, it happened as we expected. So they caught the herd and they headed them off. So to head off can have two meanings in English. To head off can mean to leave. So, for example, I have a doctor's appointment in 20 minutes. I need to head off. So I head off to my doctor's appointment, or I head off to work, or I head off to school. So leave. But head off can also mean to intercept. So if you have two groups of people, one group of people is far in front, and this other group of people wants to catch this one, then they have to and head them off, and they can catch them. So to intercept or to get someone who is at a further point than you head them off. Okay, if there are some criminals, some people who have committed a crime and they are running, and you know where they are going, you know that they are going to this address, then you can go and you can head them off and you can capture them there. And Andrew says that we've earned our lunch today. So to earn or to earn in the past tense has two ways. We can either say E-A-R-N-E-D or E-A-R-N-T. So we can say earned or earnt. Earned or earnt. Okay, earnt is more common in British English and it's a bit more old-fashioned maybe. Over time, words become more regular. So over time, maybe earnt will disappear and earned will become the word that we use more often. But you can use both, and they are both fine. And you can also write them in both ways, earned, ed, or earnt, t. So we've earned our lunch today, Bob. So he's saying that we've done a really, really good job, and so we really deserve our lunch. We deserve it because we did amazingly. Now, I'm going to take this moment, 30 seconds, to have a quick advert for my channel. And so I would like to encourage you to please support me on Patreon. On there, you can support me and every little support helps. But also, for your support, I also give away free lessons. So you can get a free lesson every month. You will have the chance of winning a free lesson. So it's really worth it because it only costs £2, and every £2 that you spend, you can win a lesson. And often my lessons cost a lot more than that. So if you do that, I really appreciate it. It helps support me, helps me to do more videos, to focus more on YouTube, but also I also might get the lovely opportunity to meet you, which would be great. So thanks very much, and let's get back to the video. Okay, so here is Andrew Glenn, and he's at home with Black Bob, and it says, sitting at lunch, Andrew heard a noise from the barn. Something's wrong, Bob. Something's wrong, Bob. Something's wrong, Bob. So Andrew's talking to Bob while he's having his cup of tea, it looks like. Or it could be a bowl of soup, because we can see it steaming. Steaming, so it's very hot, whatever it is. And they hear something. They hear some noise. And he says, something's wrong, Bob. Let's check it out. The barn was on fire. We've still got lambs in there. We've still got lambs in there. A lamb is a baby sheep. A baby sheep. Now here they've got lambs in this building. So he's panicking. He needs to go into that building and get the lambs. Sorry, he needs to go in that building and save the lambs. And you can see that there's smoke everywhere and there's fire coming out of the side of the building. So the building is on fire. So it's very dangerous to go inside. But let's see what happens. The brave dog leaped into the sheep pen. So here is Black Bob leaping into the sheep pen. So when you leap, you jump high and far. You do a very long jump. Now I'd just like to point out to you that leaped in British English is actually often said leapt and spelt like this. So you can do it in two ways. You can say leaped or you can say leapt, and you can write it in both ways too. Probably this is more common as the written form, but in the spoken form, in British English, this is actually more common. Leapt. He leapt into the pen, but leaped into the pen is perfectly correct too. So, moments later he returned, a lamb safely gripped in his jaws. So Black Bob is coming out of the burning building with a lamb in his jaws. This is my jaw and this is my jaw. So I have two jaws, a top jaw and a bottom jaw. And he has this lamb gripped in his jaws. To grip something is to hold something very tightly. So right now I'm holding my pen, and if I grip it, I'm holding it really tightly. So here he's gripping this lamb in his jaws. He pushed the bolt, holding the pen closed to the side. He pushed the bolt, holding the pen closed to the side. So he pushed the bolt, which was holding the pen closed. He pushed the bolt to the side. Okay, so he's pushing it with his nose. So he pushes it to the side because it's holding the pen closed. And letting the sheep escape before thinking of leaving himself. So he allows the sheep to escape out of the building before he thinks to leave himself. So he's a very selfless dog. He's a hero. He's a heroic dog. He's very selfless. He's trying to help the sheep before helping himself. He's a real hero. He's selfless is the opposite to selfish. Someone who's selfish only thinks of themselves, but someone who's selfless thinks always of other people. Okay. Before he could get out, a burning bale of hay toppled beside Bob. So, what's a bale of hay? Well, this is a bale of hay. Here you can see 3 bales of hay. Hay is dried grass that is cut to then feed the horses or feed the cattle, the cows, or it can be used to keep them warm in the winter time. And here, when they roll up the hay, they create these big balls of hay, and we call them bales, a bale of hay. So here are 3 bales of hay in this picture. So this burning bale of hay toppled beside Bob, so it fell down. Whoa, it fell down, and Bob is trying to get out of the way. Bob is trying to get out of the building, but this big burning bale of hay falls near him. You're hurt, lad. We need to get the vet for you. You're hurt, lad. We need to get the vet for you. So he's worried that the dog is hurt. You can see the dog, Bob, is holding up his paw. Like that because he's hurt his paw. Maybe his paw is a bit burnt. It went on fire and it got a bit burnt, maybe. And here is Bob with a hose, hosing the fire, putting out the fire. And you can see all of this smoke appearing as he puts out the fire. And he says that you're hurt, lad. So you're hurt, my boy, my friend. You're hurt, lad. We need to get the vet for you. So we need to get the vet. The vet is a doctor for animals. A veterinarian, or simply a veterinarian or a vet. So we need to get the vet for you. We need to call the vet. Later. Sorry, Andrew, we need to talk to you again. It's about Bob this time. So here is a police car with a police officer inside, and he is talking to Andrew Glenn. And behind him, we can see another car following the police car. And you can see here that the sirens of the police car are going. The sirens are going, or at least the lights are flashing. So it's important. It's important police business. Your dog attacked my sheep! Rubbish! So this man, I think this might be Henry Wilson, says that your dog, Andrew, your dog, Black Bob, attacked my sheep. Okay, to attack is... Okay, to attack. Attacked my sheep. And Andrew Glenn says, rubbish, rubbish, rubbish. You can say rubbish when something is not true. And it's definitely not true. You say it's rubbish. That's rubbish, rubbish. It's not true. My dog did not attack your sheep. I filmed this on my phone not an hour ago. So here is Henry Wilson with his phone showing a dog attacking sheep. What is it? Is it Black Bob attacking his sheep? And we find out, but Bob had been at the vet's having his paw bandaged. He couldn't have been chasing sheep. So Bob has an alibi. An alibi is when someone says that you did something, but you were not there at the time. You were somewhere else. So Bob cannot have attacked these sheep because Bob was at the vet. And the vet can confirm that he was at the vet. And here she is bandaging his paw. His paws are these. On people we call them hands and feet, but on dogs and cats and tigers and lions we call them paws. An animal that has this kind of feet we call paws. So he couldn't have been chasing the sheep. And to chase means to run after. If this is a person and he's running away, and this other person, I'm gonna get you, then this one is chasing the other one, to run after. So he couldn't have been chasing the sheep because he was at the vet getting his paw bandaged. So he has an alibi. Let's see what Henry Wilson says. The police officer says, so it wasn't Bob you saw. And Andrew Glenn says, that means there's still a vicious dog out there. And Henry Wilson does not look very happy. And a vicious, that means aggressive. A dog that is vicious is an aggressive dog. It's not a friendly dog. Maybe you go to stroke the dog and it tries to bite you or it tries to claw you. It's not friendly. It's very aggressive. It's vicious. 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 And Henry Wilson says, well, perhaps it will have gone away now. And the police officer, I think we should have a look around your place, Mr. Wilson. So, he says that maybe this other dog will have gone away. So it seems like he doesn't want anyone to look for this vicious dog. But the police officer says, okay, I think it's appropriate to look at your place, so at your farm or at your home, Mr. Wilson. Despite Wilson's protests, they soon found an aggressive sheepdog that looked very like Bob. Despite Wilson's protests, so if he protests, he says, no, it's okay, no, we don't need to go to my house, we don't need to go to my farm. And the police officer says, no, I insist, we must go, it's very important. And Wilson says, no, absolutely not, I don't want to waste any of your time. And the police officer says, we must go, Mr. Wilson. If you say that other people are attacking your sheep, we must now go. And then Mr. Wilson says, no, we will not go. I cannot. My wife is at home. She is sick. You cannot come to my house. Okay, so he comes up with lots of excuses, lots of reasons, lots of protests. No. And despite his protests, which means even though he is protesting, even though he says no, they go to his house anyway, or they go to his farm anyway. And they found an aggressive sheepdog that looked very like Bob. Yes, you can see that this sheepdog looks very like Bob. It's a little bit different, okay? There's a white mark on the top of its head. But overall, generally, it's very similar. But it's also very aggressive. So it's very vicious. Very vicious. Oops. Bob was in the clear, but Henry Wilson wasn't. All that fuss because Wilson wanted to drive me off my farm so he could buy it cheap. He'd no chance against us, Bob. All that fuss because Wilson wanted to drive me off my farm so he could buy it cheap. He'd no chance against us, Bob. The end. So here, Bob was in the clear. When you're in the clear, it means that before you're in trouble. You're in trouble. So someone said that he attacked the sheep. So he was in trouble. And when he's in the clear, that's the point where we know that he is innocent. He did not attack the sheep. And we all know that he did not attack the sheep. We know he was at the vet. We know he is a good dog. So he's in the clear. He's okay. If someone thinks that I stole something, I go into a shop and they think I stole something. And I say, no, I paid. I paid for that thing. And I look, here is the evidence. Here is the payment I made for this amount of money for that, okay? And they say, oh, okay, right. You have shown us that you did not steal anything, so I am in the clear. So he was in the clear, but Henry Wilson wasn't in the clear. So Henry Wilson is now in trouble. Henry Wilson has now done something wrong. And here, Andrew Glenn starts to explain the reason why Mr. Wilson found this vicious dog and pretended that he had attacked his sheep. So he says all that fuss is like commotion. Lots of people talking loudly, arguing, shouting. And there was a lot of fuss. There was fuss between Mr. Wilson, Andrew Glenn, and the police officer, arguing and discussing this thing. So this was fuss. It was a very problematic situation. Just to explain fuss a little bit more, if I have a child, if I have a baby or a small child, and the child has a toy, for example this, okay, and the toy breaks, then maybe the baby will make a lot of fuss. It will go, wah, wah. Okay, it will be really upset and it will make a lot of fuss. So it will make a lot of noise and it will complain and it will shout. Okay, and that's what fuss is. So here, there was a lot of fuss over this situation. So he was making fuss with the police officer and with Andrew Glenn. So he says, all of that fuss because Wilson wanted to drive me off my farm, to push me, to force me away from my farm so he could buy it cheap. He'd no chance against us, Bob. So we know already that Mr. Wilson wants to expand his farm. So he wanted to make put Andrew in a situation where he had to leave the farm so that Andrew's farm would be very cheap and he could buy the farm. And then he would expand his farm even bigger and even more. So that was a dirty trick, a dirty trick, a dirty trick. So he's not playing by the rules. He's not playing legally. He's doing something very wrong and very illegal to try and get his farm for very cheap. So Mr. Wilson is a bad guy. But he'd no chance against us, Bob. So me and you, Bob, we are such a good team. We work together so well that Mr. Wilson could never trick us or could never win. He would never win against us because we are a great team. We work together really well. So he had zero chance against us, the power team. Okay, and that is the end of this part of the comic strip of Black Bob. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions now, so you have an opportunity to practice your English. So, question number 1 is, what was Black Bob's alibi? What was Black Bob's alibi? And by that I mean, how did they know that Black Bob did not attack the sheep? Okay, how did they know that Black Bob did not attack the sheep? You can pause the video here, and then after that I'll give you a suggested answer. So, Black Bob's alibi was that he was at the vet when Henry Wilson says that he attacked his sheep. So we know that it wasn't Black Bob because he had an alibi. So another question for you would be... Okay, my second question for you is, what does Andrew Glenn find next to the damaged fence? Or what does he find on the damaged fence? So again, you can pause it here and then I'll give a suggested answer. So a suggested answer for you is that he found some wool from one of Henry Wilson's sheep, and he knew it was one of Henry Wilson's sheep because it had some dye on it, which was the dye that Henry Wilson uses to mark his sheep. And finally, I'd like to give you a little phrase that you can practice, something that will be useful for you in the future in English. So I think this one could be it. I think we've earned our lunch today. I think we've earned our lunch today. Now, of course, you could change this and you could say, I think we've earned a break, or I think we've earned our dinner, or I think we've earned a rest. So you could change it in many different ways. But I would like you to write this phrase, I think we've earned our lunch today, in the comments below for 2 reasons. Number 1, to help you to remember and learn this phrase. And number 2, just to help my channel because it helps with the algorithm and everything. Okay, so thank you very much everyone for supporting me, for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any comments about how I can make these videos better or change them in any way, you can always suggest that down below. So don't forget to like it and subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and I will see you again soon everyone. Bye bye.